Tighten your lines as we get ready to sail the seven seas on the Political Pirate Podcast. Join Captain Ted Yoho and the salty dog John Martin as they search far and wide for the greatest treasure of all, the truth. From local Florida news to nationwide stories and the globe beyond, we've got it all mapped out. Now here's your hosts, the salty dog John Martin and Captain Ted Yoho.
Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Three Ps, the Political Pirate Podcast, with yours truly, the old salty dog, John Martin, as your host, and the captain of our pirate ship, none other than Mr. Ted Yoho. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning, John. I am doing great. We're up here in the Georgia mountains. The weather's cool, and we got a lot to talk about today.
Absolutely. But first, I was teasing you right before we went on, and people, you got a nice effect going there. You've got kind of a Trumponian theme there because you're looking a little orange there in that background, man.
I wanted to match
cool.
the hair of the Trump picture you have behind you.
Yeah, and I got my kind of MAGA type shirt on, so we're good to go. Well, we're going to start talking about an article that you brought to my attention from the Daily Signal.
Right.
And we may have to do two parts on this because it's a pretty in-depth story. And the title of it is Obama Targets Hungary, Poland with Organizing Campaign. And it's written by a gentleman named Mike Gonzalez, because it's all about how people talk about Donald Trump being the king, so to speak. But this story lays out a pretty good case that, and this is my title, not what the article says, but that Obama is really bucking beyond that. He's bucking for basically emperor of the world. And I think this article kind of talks about that. So before we get into it a little deeper, just give me your general thoughts, Ted, of why you think this story is so important.
Well, I wanted to point this out. Mike Gonzalez, he writes a lot of good stories from the Daily Signal. In fact, he's got another one out about the Virginia governor's race, and we'll talk more about that. But this really shows you what Obama's been doing when he's left office. When he left, he and Eric Holder started an organization, and they were raising funds, and it was to get these progressive district attorneys elected. It was to change the electoral maps and get a Democratic majority in the major playing states so that they could win the majority. And he's extended that to go around the world. And it's scary when you read this. What he's doing is they've got the Obama Foundation. It's got right at $1 billion. He's flying, handpicking students, 25 to 30 at a time. They're bringing them over here. They're pretty much putting them through Obama campaign school, teaching them how to be community organizers. And it's all going to be DEI, wokeism, anti-Americanism, and how we've got to adjust America. Now, keep in mind, Obama was the guy when he was running, actually, when he was president, he said nobody needs to make more than $250,000 a year. Nobody needs that any more money than that. Yet, I know we got a picture of his mansion up there in Martha's Vineyard. So he's taking these people, bringing them into our country, and he's training the leaders for the next 25 years from now. These people will go out, they'll go back to their countries, they'll organize in the way that Obama did, and he's teaching these people how to do that. And it's anti-democratic. And he says, this is all to preserve democratization around the world, or these democratic nations. But as we look, these the type of democracies that we're used to, like in this country, they're under attack. And it's people like Obama that wants to go to the socialist. And as we've talked over and over again, all socialists, all communists are socialists until they become socialists, and then they turn to communism. And I know this is going to apply to Zoran Mandani as we get that clip later on. But this is where, John, you and I have talked about, we want to educate, activate, or motivate and activate people. This is what Obama is exactly doing, but it goes against what America stands for. And so he's not just doing it in this country, he's doing it around the world, so that we're going to lose allies if he succeeds at this. And so how do we counter that? We counter it through programs like ours, where our goal is to educate and let people know what's going on behind the scenes. The media's not talking about this, but they should, because this is really This is an extension of the Obamanization of what happened in America. And keep in mind, his goal was to fundamentally transform America. A very good running constitutional republic that had the democratic process, but he didn't like the outcomes, so he's changing that. We thought he went away, but he'll never go away. He's a young guy, he's got a lot of money, and his legacy is under attack. And so he wants to preserve it here, but he also wants to spread it around the world. And I'll turn it back to you.
Well, plus you got to keep in mind that if he doesn't do something like this, he's got to hang out with Michelle a lot more than that. She sits there on her podcast and just bashes him all the time. So that's kind of interesting. But
yeah, I bet she's happy that he's out doing something away from her. Yeah,
I want to make a quick point on something because I don't want it to be missed. Because you mentioned a long list of stuff here, but one thing you mentioned was the attorney generals that are being elected. Of course, Soros, people point to him as being a funder of that, but you brought up Obama, and I want to make sure people understand that, because if people are wondering how this affects my life, well, we'll make a case that affects you in great ways. But right off the bat, if people look at attorney generals now across the country, and people are waking up to the fact that these attorney generals have a lot of power, and basically in many ways are the key responsibility for the crime enforcement, and why we have so much violence on the streets. People focus on like governors and mayors and even police officers and stuff like that, but they tend to forget that the attorney general is the driving force behind law enforcement in each state.
They really are. And it's not just the attorney generals. It's not just Obama. You get that whole movement, and it's like the AOCs, the Rashid Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, Zohran Madani, defund the police. They want to, Jasmine Crockett, just because you committed a crime doesn't mean you're a criminal. I mean, that's their mindset. And they're soft on crime. They want open borders. And, these are the things that are destroying us from within, a portion of what's destroying us from within. There's a lot more in here. And I know you've got a soundbite of the King's protest where the one lady holding up and saying Charlie Kirk was a piece of garbage. And she says the problem is people are just ignorant. They don't know. And then she goes on to prove how ignorant she is because she couldn't answer any question.
Yeah, it's crazy. But just to give you what literally has just come out this week in I think it's in Massachusetts, the attorney general there, they turned loose this guy who was had been charged with kidnapping and all of that, and beating a woman almost to death. They basically turned the guy loose, didn't prosecute him, and now he's accused of killing this young black woman. And he's a black man. I just point that out because it's all about black women sometimes. A black woman who was an up-and-coming great student, a beauty pageant contestant, and was on track to potentially be the next Miss America. And now she's dead because of these crazy attorney generals and district attorneys and stuff that Soros and people like Obama have pushed upon us.
And they justify it. They go out and justify it because there's been all this repression and suppression over the decades, since America was founded. Yet these things happen more and more, and the American people are tired of it. And that, again, is a big reason they brought in the Republican majority. And there ought to be some legislation that if you're a district attorney and you are a judge and you let somebody out like this, that that is a risk. They've proven to be a risk, and they commit a crime, you're guilty of that crime. I think that would be something that would get their attention. Let's go back to what Obama's doing in Hungary and Poland. He's targeting those because he says that the leaders of those in those countries are too authoritarian. And those people in those countries have to stand up to what's going on because they got the threat of Russia's trying to go in there. I mean, we see what Russia's doing to Poland, flying the drones over there. They're flying planes over that. They're doing the same thing to Hungary. And they're trying to intimidate these people that are leaders of these nations. And those leaders of those nations, they know what's happening in their country, and they're trying to get rid of it. Just like in this country, you see the liberal progressives coming up. And they always hide. Now they're even claiming to be liberal, progressive socialists. Before they would never even claim to be a socialist. We know they're on their way to communism. They just haven't gotten the brass to do that yet, or the backbone to do it. They're going to slide in there. And this is where we have to resist that. And I don't want to be a resist movement like the liberal progressives did when they marched into our office after Trump won the first time. We just have to fight back against this, and it's not going to be tolerated. This is a constitutional republic. It will remain that way. And we're going to pass this on to our children. And if you don't like it here, leave.
Yeah, well, in the course of all that, something you always spark me, Ted. You know that. That one of the solutions.
I'm better than a cup of coffee for you, aren't I?
Yeah, one of these solutions I just popped in my head about these attorney generals and state attorneys, district attorneys, and all that. The Democrats, and it's been successful in New York City at taking away implied immunity from the police officers, which basically means they can be sued directly as individuals and not, because they were immune to that. What about, because most political figures have the same thing and they haven't taken it away from themselves. What about if they took away implied immunity from these prosecutors and stuff like that, so that if this person gets released and goes and does a crime, they are somehow personally responsible for it? I bet you'd see some changes then.
I think something like that needs to happen. It really does, because there's got to be consequences. We're brought up in life here in America that there's cause and effect. If you do something and you cause something, there's an effect after that. And then there's that word that has gotten lost in the psyche of the American and a lot of people is responsibility. So if you do something that causes this, you're responsible for that. And I think that's exactly what you're talking about. And I think there ought to be criminal charges on these people, because they're the ones that the perpetrator did the crime, but he wouldn't have done the crime had he not been released by a liberal judge or a district attorney that would not prosecute.
Absolutely. Well, let's get into this a bit deeper, because, the thing that the Democrats are always saying, and Obama's made this statement many times when he's questioned about any of this stuff, he basically says, well, we're doing it to save democracies around the world in the United States, sure, and maybe encouraging them and all of that. And I put this title on Obama. I said way back when I was doing a show previously that I thought Obama would, when he was no longer president, might end up being the Secretary General of the UN, because he really, they love him and he has connections all over. Now he's probably making too much money to do that. But I do think Obama, and I said Emperor Obama, and I think we got a picture I kind of pulled up about this. But I do believe that he's looking, there he is, Mr. Unicorn Man. He's going around, he's just benevolent. And he's going around with his rainbow swords, bestowing the blessings of Obamaism, which is ultimately socialism, communism around, Ted. But I thought you might find that funny. But I want to read, this is a portion of Mr. Gonzalez's article. He says the platform that Obama uses is his Obama Foundation, which you mentioned, a Chicago-based nonprofit organization that, check this out, has assets of nearly $1 billion, and in 2024 raised nearly $200 million in that year alone. The numbers for this year have not come out. So they got the money, man. There's no doubt about it. What are your thoughts on just the impact of all of that money?
Well, he's going to have to explain that to Zohran Madani, because, excuse me, he says nobody should have $1 billion. So
yeah, I'm going to play a video and get him in his own words saying that.
That's right. But again, Obama is doing this, and he's talking about how he's there fighting to save democracy. Give me a break. And this is typical of the people on the left. They're saying, oh, he's destroying democracy. The Republicans are destroying, Trump's destroying democracy. They always accuse the other side of doing exactly what they're doing. You go back and look at what the Obama-Biden, it was Obama's third term with Biden, how they weaponized the Justice Department with James Comey, Brenner, all those people in all the three-letter agencies to go after Donald Trump. And they took the organizations we had in this country. They weren't perfect, but they had weaponized it to go after him. I mean, they were doing the wiretaps, all those things that were going on. And you don't think that destroys democracy? Give me a break. And then you get people like Letitia James up there in New York that comes out with that egregious $453 million fine. And I believe in our Constitution it says there should not be there will be no excess binders and retainers like that on anybody. And they blow through the Constitution when it serves them, but then they cry foul when they think somebody else is doing that, and they forget how bad they were with it. So Obama, I hope somebody, one of those foreign countries, pick them up. Maybe it should be Cuba or somebody like that. And you're talking about him being the Secretary General of the UN. The way I understand it, it has to be somebody other than a U.S. citizen. And we can go back to his birth certificate discussion, and he may qualify for that.
Yeah, well, they would definitely change it for him. They would. But you mentioned some of his work, because we're talking mostly about what's happening in the U.S., but his presence is clearly international. He says here in this article from Mr. Gonzalez, it says, 2 U.S. allies Obama is currently focusing his efforts on are Hungary and Poland, which is the writer here rightfully makes the case that they are pro-American populations with living memories of America's continued support, I guess is what it is. It's got a typo here. Support during the hard decades of Soviet despotism, occupation.
Despotism.
I can tell you, I got a son that's over in working with the Polish government now as a drone and missile defense expert. He's retired from the military, so they know all about like Putin. So I got to ask you this question: who is more dangerous to Poland, for instance? Is it Putin or is it Obama? I mean, that to me, you may say, "Oh, there's no," but I think it's an interesting question. Let me go ahead and play this video.
Before you do that, who's more dangerous? To me, it's Obama. Again, they're claiming to be socialists. I mean, they're taking the moniker of being socialists, and again, all communists are socialists. Till they achieve socialism, they become communists. So he's going after pro-American countries, Poland and Hungary. All right, they're right at the border of Russia, knowing Russia wants to take them over, and Obama is working against them. And he did this with Israel. He funded campaigns against Bibi Netanyahu, and it's well documented what he did. And so, I hope these other countries wake up and run him out.
Yeah, well, I got a video here. We've played it before, but if you want to hear it, as they say, straight from the horse's mouth, check this out, because this is a hot mic situation now. I mean, in other words, it wasn't for general consumption. They didn't do it on purpose. But this is Obama talking to Medvedev, who is now, I think, he's always worked for Putin. I'm not sure what his title is. He was then. Is he still? I'm not sure if he is or not. But this is back when Obama was president, and he tells this guy all you really need to know about the relationship between Obama and Vladimir Putin. Check this out, and we'll come back and talk about it.
This is my last lecture for you. Yeah. And after my election, I have more flexibility. Yeah. I understand. I transmit this information to Vladimir and Stanford.
I mean, he literally have Obama, in case people couldn't hear it, leaning in, telling Medvedev that, after the election, I'll be able to work with you guys a lot more. But right now, basically, keep it quiet. Can you imagine?
I'll have a lot more flexibility.
I'll have more flexibility. Can you imagine if Donald Trump was caught on a hot mic saying that to Vladimir Putin? I mean, my God, they would be wanting to literally firing squad the guy.
They really would. They'd be calling impeachment. And then, if they get the majority back, they're going to do anything they can to impeach him. And if they get the Senate, they will impeach him. And they just can't stand the success he's had from from the conservative perspective of rolling back so many of these programs that needed to be rolled back, I was always an advocate of, I guess it was Project 2025 back when I came into Congress. I wanted to devolve from the federal government, take away from them what they shouldn't be doing and giving it back to the states, which that they should be doing. Education is a perfect example of that. And Trump is doing that. As ugly as DOGE might have been, it had done well in reducing the size of government. And then Russ Voigt, the OMB head of the OMB, he is doing what he said he was going to do if they had a shutdown. And it's just driving the left crazy because he can get rid of these positions and there's nothing the Democrats can do. I mean, the smartest thing for them to do is open up the government, but they're following the wrong sheet music or the wrong gameplay.
Well, you mentioned the shutdown. I want to make a quick point. I don't have any video on this, but it's out there a pretty good bit. I can't recall her name, but she's basically the second leading Democrat in the House, this woman. And she literally on an interview on Fox News, of all places, said about the shutdown that that this was the only leverage they had, and admitted that it was hurting people, but then said that this is the only leverage they had. So she admitted that they're using this as a political leverage, period. That's all. She flatly admitted that.
Oh, she's a hardcore progressive too. I'll get her name here in a minute, but that's what they're doing. They're messing with people's lives to try to win their point. And their point that they're fighting for is a losing argument to the American people. And so, let's just hope this goes and gets resolved sooner than later. And it's already the longest shutdown they've ever had. And they're ugly. You go down to your district, if you're not up in Washington, which there's no need to be because you can't really take meetings, the people in the district are angry. And then you've got to justify what's going on. Of course, it's all the Democrats. Of course, they're going to put the blame on the Republicans. It's kind of like the No Kings rally. I know you got some videos of some of those silly people out there. They just don't accept what Trump is doing, but they think Obama is great and what the left did. And they're just out of touch, man.
Yeah, well, this is a very important story, and there's a lot more tentacles to this thing, so we're going to get back into it.
We need to stay up on this because this is really what's going on behind the scenes. And again, this is why if you've got the majority like we have, both houses, you can't back up. This is the time for us to run harder and harder and harder and expose these kind of things that are going on that are really, they're working against you. I mean, it's like having termites in your house that you don't treat and they're just eating away at it. And
eating away at the foundation, literally.
We need to fumigate it.
Well, that's why, Ted, we need to educate, motivate, and activate people. And in order to do that, we need people to not only like our show and spread it far and wide, but sponsor our show and participate with our sponsors. So we're going to take a quick break. If you'd like to become a sponsor of the show, look at the little tagline you'll periodically see that says Contact Freddie. Make that call because we need your help. We'll be right back.
Although the owner of Lewis Oil Company maintains she is 29, Lewis Oil turns 60 years old in June. Chevron would like to recognize the North Florida second-generation family-owned business, celebrating its growth and staying power. Lewis Oil Company maintains significant on-hand supplies, strategically located fuel depots, a delivery fleet, on-site service, fuel card locks, and convenience stores. Lewis Oil Company understands its responsibility in the local economy by providing service and delivery on demand and in crisis. As a first responder for 18 Florida counties and the Southeast from Texas to Virginia, we are proud of this rare accomplishment. Lewis Oil delivers.
This is Ward Scott, and I want to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. The Ward Scott Files premium sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care.
Meldon Law, the only official injury partner of the Florida Gators.
The Ward Scott Files Gold sponsors are Lewis Oil Company,
Shoot GTR,
On the Spot Dry Cleaners, R&R Construction, and Style Cuts. If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, you can visit our website, www.wardscottfiles.com, and click on the Advertise Here banner on the right side of the page, or call my friend Freddie at 352-284-3733. Again, thank you to all the great businesses that support the Ward Scott Files. And remember, if you like the show, thank our sponsors and support the businesses that support us.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. May God have mercy on your soul.
Or that very much surprises me that you've never been tased.
You can't handle the truth.
All bees poop.
A warthog. He's going to come up the steps. Here he comes. Oh my goodness, and he's huge. Hello, boy. I wonder if we can pet him. Hi, boy.
Can we touch him? No, don't.
Help me! Help! Help!
And we're back to the 3 Ps, the Political Pirate Podcast, with the captain of our ship, Ted Yoho, and of course I'm your host, the old salty dog, John Martin. When we went to break, Ted, we were talking about this article that's written by Mr. Gonzalez here about Obama Foundation and how it's impacting both the United States and literally the world. And I was making a case that Obama really is not trying to be a king. He wants to be the emperor of the world. And we were talking specifically about his influence he's trying to exert on Poland and Hungary. And I want to read this a little bit from the article, and then I get back to you, Ted. But Mr. Gonzalez writes, this is from a Daily Signal article, by the way. He says, more importantly, or worse yet, when it comes to Obama, these nations, talking about Hungary and Poland, by and large, eschew, this is his words, race and sexual theories, climate alarmism, mass immigration, and anti-Israel fanaticism. So in other words, they're not keen on that. They're opposed on that. And so those types of things are one of the reasons why Obama is drawn to them, not to mention the fact that both of the rulers of these countries are actually very pro Donald Trump. So what are your thoughts on that point he's making?
Well, I think it's like we were saying, his legacy here was the transformation he did in America. And people need to go back to prior to when he got into office and look at a snapshot of America. Look at the issues that were in the culture and where they stood, and then look at where they are after Biden got out of the White House, Obama's third term. Look how much transformation that had happened. So that's his legacy being washed away in a short period of time, less than a year, with Trump in the White House. And so Obama wants to take this to these other countries. And I've said this before on this show. I've been out of office 4 years, and I still have ambassadors calling me. And this is when Biden was in the office and USAID was doing all those transgender parades and funding transgender surgeries and treatments. The ambassadors would call me and says, your policies in America are really damaging the relationship with us and your country. These were countries that were considered allies or strong friends of ours. And so the policies that Obama worked in there through Biden were driving a wedge between us and that country. And so where were they going? They're getting closer to China and these other countries because they just didn't buy what we were selling them. And so Obama's trying to do this with two countries that are strong democracies, yet he's driving them closer. He would rather have Putin in there or Xi Jinping or some other despot in there instead of people that have free choice. And so he's really interfering in the politics of another nation. And this is something that he should be held accountable. And that $1 billion he got, or the $200 million, I want people to know that Jeff Bezos gave him $100 million, and the founder of Airbnb also gave him $100 million. And so as we buy stuff from Amazon, and I think we all do, we're funding this kind of garbage. And I'm sure Zuckerberg's thrown some money in there, and no telling who else. But these are things that are working against us. They want to get rid of a country like America because then they can change the world, the world governing bodies. But they can't do it if we stay a strong nation. We're the ones that are standing in the way of their one world government and all these things, the race and sexual theories, the climate alarmism, and they want migration everywhere, and they want to help Zoran Madani and the fanatics go get rid of Israel from the river to the sea, wipe it out.
If people are saying, "Oh, well," you were saying Obama is, and because you just mentioned it, wants the United States as we know it to go away. Well, keep in mind, and that may be exaggerated, people may think, but keep in mind, he's the one that said he wanted to fundamentally change America. And also, Obama loves to hang out with the super wealthy elite, period.
Right.
That's what they do. They don't hang out. You don't see him like hanging out at the barbershop kind of thing or whatever. You don't see him trying to help homeless like Jimmy Carter was doing. He literally is trying to hang out with the elite of the elite. And, all these things that Mr. Gonzalez mentions in here, some of them are very obvious, like race and sexual theories, that kind of thing. Mass immigration, open border, all of that. Anti-Israel. I mean, Obama was flat out anti-Israel and brought on, quote, the Islamic Spring or Muslim Spring or whatever it was. But I want to point out one.
He was the one. He and Hillary Clinton were the ones responsible for creating ISIS. They took out Gaddafi in Libya by doing the no-fly zones, which means they go in there and take out the very structure that allows them to have air defense system. They took that out, and then this is well documented in Robert Gates's book. I think it's called Duty. They said they take that out, and then they said, well, what happens after that? He and Hillary said, well, we're going to sit back and see what comes out of that. ISIS came out of that. And they used that country for training, and they organized, and the rest is history. So this guy should not be telling anybody else how to do it. And that their void scholarship that comes out of the Obama Foundation, it allows college students to receive up to $50,000 in financial aid for college, $10,000 travel stipends, $2,000 every year for 10 years after college to travel around the world to go after. To do what Obama did, to fundamentally transform these countries. And when Obama said that, 5 days before his first inauguration, that was probably the strongest impetus for me to run for Congress. The way we offset this is, again, through us and things like Tipping Points USA to counter this. I mean, it's just, we're in a war. It's just the bullets aren't being shot, but they're doing everything they can to weaken a strong country like ours.
Well, you mentioned Libya and all that, and the whole Benghazi situation where we lost people in the consulate there and everything else,
right.
Where they
Should
got
never
executed
happen.
And drugged through the streets and just horrendous stuff. Hillary Clinton gets most of the blame for that. And I'm not saying she doesn't deserve a huge chunk of it, but what is rarely mentioned, Ted, is that the role that Obama directly played or didn't play in one case in those loss of those lives. When all that was happening, it was kind of late in the evening here. When the Benghazi consulate was under siege, Obama went to bed. He went to sleep literally in the White House while that was happening. And we had a group of volunteers in the military in Italy that could have flown directly over there, wanted to do it, backed them up. And Obama knew that, went to sleep so that the order could not be given. And when he awakened, they were massacred. And people need to understand that is literally, yes, Miss Clinton deserves a lot of credit she gets for that, but the blood is on the hands and at the feet of Obama there, and he total dereliction of duty, in my opinion.
That's a perfect word, dereliction of duty. Take this back to Bill Clinton when he was playing golf, and he got the message that they knew where Osama bin Laden was, and they could have taken him out, and he just ignored it. And this is why elections are so important. You get somebody like Clinton. Had he acted, and contrast to if Trump would have known where Osama bin Laden was and he was playing golf, he would have called for a strike on him. Had they taken out Osama bin Laden back in the 90s, would there have been a 9/11? Think of that. So that's cause and effect. That's consequences. And that's also responsibility of the job. And if you got dereliction of duty, as Clinton showed, as Obama showed, as Hillary Clinton has showed, you get bad consequences. And I mean, we can just go back from Bill Clinton, Osama bin Laden, Obama, and Benghazi with Hillary Clinton. If you have strong leadership, like a Trump, those things wouldn't happen. I don't agree with what Trump's doing with the drug dealers. I think we've talked about that. I'd let them get in our territory, destroy the drugs, and I would put these people on trial. And I shared with the Trump White House what I would have done is I would make bringing drugs into America capital crime, and it gets prosecuted immediately. And that way, I've got them in. They came into my country illegally. They brought drugs in illegally. They're going to suffer the consequences of that. You have cause and effect. And I think we need to do that instead of just blowing these up out there in international waters. But I'm off topic there. I'll let you get back to our
No problem, because you and I pretty much agree on that. I want to bring up one quick point, though, on this list of things that Mr. Gonzalez listed. He says climate alarmism. In other words, climate change and the doomsday and all that. I always tell people that don't listen to what people say as much. Look at what they do. If you want to know how they really feel about something, look at what they do. If Obama believed in the end of the world climatism and all that kind of stuff, when he first got out of the White House, before he became literally a billionaire, he spent $15 million, and I think we got a picture on this house in Nantucket. He spent $15 billion. There it is, right in front of that house. That image, that's not like the Chicago Great Lakes there. That is the Atlantic Ocean. Literally rock throwing distance or golf ball shot for Donald Trump to the Atlantic. If he believed that we only had 10, 12 years like Ocasio-Cortez, or, that we were in imminent destruction, you think he would put his family home right there? Plus, he spends most of his time in Hawaii. Wouldn't he, if he really believed that, be up in the Grand Tetons in Wyoming or something like that? I mean, that shows you that the whole climate change thing is total BS, because the people pushing it don't even believe it.
They really don't. And the whole thing is for control. I mean, we were in a conversation last night with some folks, and they were talking about all the pollution coming out, and they're all coming out of the poor countries. And if they had, you could put those resources in there. They don't really care. It's like England, I think, counts for 2% of the CO2 going in there that they claim is heating the planet up. They could go to 100% carbon neutral, and it's not going to change anything. And that's a fairly wealthy country. You go to these other countries, they're more worried about having potable water, drinking water, sewers, maybe a little bit of electricity. And I think this whole argument is for control, and they want to push that one world government and be in control of everything. And, you can't live a free life and have liberties and freedoms like we do with those kind of people in office. So we need to run them out every chance we get.
Well, you mentioned earlier, and I want to make sure people understand this, that Mr. Gonzalez, in this article from the Daily Signal, he talks about the Obama Foundation scholars. And this is where they handpick 30 possible leaders from around the world, not U.S. citizens, there may be some, but leaders from around the world every year, and puts them through some sort of what he calls Obama boot camp for an academic year. Now, they're importing, and I'm not opposed to trying to educate people in different parts of the world, but while the school systems in his home base of Chicago are literally some of the worst in the country, while you have Baltimore in Maryland there, where it's predominantly black, and I'm just stating the facts, where not one single student in the public school system is at grade level functioning in reading and math. Not a single one, not 1%, not one. We're importing people and teaching them whatever they're teaching them. I mean, you talk about fundamentally change. They're trying to fundamentally change the United States of America and really the world.
Well, you think about this, John. Those kids that are in high school right now, that's your workforce 10 years from now. And if they can't read, write, and make critical decisions and, just look at something and solve problems, they're just going to be basically zombies. You're going to have to tell them what to do. And if you look at what USAID, when it started under President Kennedy in 1964, it was focused on agriculture, education, and humanitarian. And we educated the majority of the world leaders for the next probably since the end of the Cold War in the 80s, 89, somewhere in there. And then we turned our focus away from that, and they got into the DEI and the wokeism and all that garbage there in the meantime. And so that was what created the alliances that we had around the world and the friendships and the trade that we've had with these countries, because they're trained in liberal democracy thought and Western ideologies. So now what's happened is China they've got 300,000 foreign students over there. And I guarantee you, they're not teaching them how to make Mugu Gai Pan. They're teaching them how to be good communists and why that is a better form than democracies. And I'll guarantee you, they're saying how messy democracy is. Look at what it does. Look at how it's eroded America. Look at communism in China. We went from this to this. And those are going to be the leaders in the future. And Obama is teaching people basically to do the same thing. And he's more aligned with Putin and he's more aligned with Xi Jinping than he is with our founders of this country, because he got that innate hatred for this country as he exhibited his whole time here.
Yeah, well, just to give you a couple statistics here from this article about college students in the United States, and this may be foreign or domestic college students, but this is what Obama's foundation is doing. They pick college students to receive $50,000 in financial aid for college a year, $10,000 travel stipend, and $2,000 every year for 10 years after they're out of college to travel around the world. Now, I'm not necessarily saying it's nefarious, but if you look at the what Obama espouses, it's definitely not the founding principles of this country. But he does all of that, which he's free to do. I'm not denigrating those people, but Turning Point USA, Ted, is the real problem, right?
You're right, right.
We know
right.
that is what is eroding America right there. Not what Obama's doing, but Turning Point USA.
And where's the media? Where's the media why are they not calling him out on this? I just don't understand it, but that's typical. It's like, you've heard me talk about AOC. They don't call her out and ask the hard questions. They're not doing it to Zoran Madani. They might ask him a couple questions, but then they leave it. They say, well, I know you've got a clip on him you're going to play. Yeah,
I want to play this. I want to play a quick clip from Mandami, because it's early voting in New York City, I believe, starts Tuesday. I know it starts next week sometime. And so that race is probably already settled, but New Yorkers, get out and vote. I would say vote for Swela, or I can't even hardly endorse Como, anybody but Mandami. But here's Mandami talking about the need or not the need for billionaires. Check this out.
Democratic socialist. Do you think that billionaires have a right to exist?
I don't think that we should have billionaires because, frankly, it is so much money in a moment of such inequality. And ultimately, what we need more of is equality across our city and across our state and across our country. And I look forward to work with everyone, including billionaires, to make a city that is.
Well, there's Mandami, who Barack Obama has been directly working with, saying he doesn't believe there should be any billionaires. But I don't know if Obama has actually heard that or not. But you mentioned, just to reemphasize something you said earlier, the $100 million club that is behind Obama, not let alone billionaires. But Brian Chesky, he's the guy from Airbnb. He gave $100 million to Obama. And of course, Jeff Bezos, he gave $100 million. So you've already said about that. But we did find one Democrat out there that is jealous of Obama and the billions that he's getting. And I want to play, if we can, this clip, this video clip. And I think you'll recognize the face and the voice behind it. And I guess I should warn people, this is AI, but because who knows how dumb some people may be. But this is one Democrat, I love this video, that was a little upset about the billions going to Obama and not to her. Check it out.
What you done? Give me back my slippers. I'm the only one that knows how to use them. I can cause accidents too. Give them back to me or I'll... Slippers. What have you done with them? They're no use to you. I'll bide my time. And as for you, my fine lady, it's true, I can't attend you here and now as I'd like, but just try to stay out of my way. I'll get you, my pretty, and your little dog too. Oh, what a world, what a world.
I can't help it, Ted. You know me, I'm a jokester to a certain extent. But my pretty. I mean, she fits the wicked.
Love the way Bill Clinton was so excited in the background. He just, his eyes are just, oh my God, he was probably looking at somebody else. Incidentally,
you got to think the Clintons have got to be looking at what Obama's doing and go, we used to have that money. We had that money, and all that kind of stuff. And it's
funny how when the lights got put on them and investigations were starting on the Clinton Foundation, which had $1 billion, how it just dried up and all the money went away.
Well, I want to play one more video because you mentioned it a couple of times. We had the No Kings rally, right?
Right.
And this was in D.C. This is the one in D.C., I do believe. And you can pull up this whole video and look at it. It's frightening and angry and entertaining at the same time. But this is a lady, because people talk about the MAGA movement being a cult, right? They're talking about it being a cult. And this same lady, I don't think it's on this particular video, was talking about how Charlie Kirk should have been assassinated because he was evil, and she totally supports that.
He was garbage.
Yeah, he was garbage. But if you want to know just how much of a cult following Obama has, and keep in mind, this is at the No Kings rally. Check out this video.
Quite frankly, I would take him as a king. I would.
Take Obama as a king, get rid of Trump.
I would take Obama as a king any day.
Anyone that's for inclusion, diversity, and wants America to be a land for all people.
I mean, Ted, the woman is at the No Kings rally, and literally says that Obama should be king. We don't need a king. It's King Obama. And I say he wants to be emperor. Don't just hold him to the king thing. But it's just insane.
It really is, and she's the lady that she was saying, well, Project 2025 is terrible. And the guy said, well, what is it? And she couldn't say one thing about it. She goes, well, in today's day and time, everybody should know this stuff. And I can't believe how ignorant people are. And then he asked her that question and she can't answer it. And she just proved how ignorant people are. And then she's out there protesting. And it's more, I hate Trump and I love Obama. And that's where I stand. And I don't believe that she's one that gets her hands too dirty during the day. She doesn't look like she's out there with the people working. It was convenient for her. Somebody probably handed her a sign. I know if people watch that clip, a lady's holding up a sign of somebody with an AK-47, and they're asking her about it. And she goes, oh, I don't know. Somebody handed her that sign and told her to stand there and march, and they give her $10 or a donut afterwards. It's craziness. And again, this goes back to that demonstration they had up in D.C. when Trump won the first time. The hatred, I was up there, the hatred they had for Donald Trump and what he stood for. And these are the same people. And we don't want these people in charge. And you go back to Bill Clinton. He said that America can no longer afford to be the lone superpower in the world. Obama feels the same way. They want to destroy America so that we're not that backstop against the Putins and the Xi Jinpings and Kim Jong-un of North Korea. And if America fails, this world will change for hundreds of years. It'll be ugly.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right about it. And I tell you, Ted, I have you've seen me. I travel around to things like these No Kings rallies and interview people.
I was surprised.
My
I didn't
style
see
is
that.
not. Yeah, my style is not really to confront people. I don't shy away from my beliefs, but I go out there and I just ask them simple questions to tell me what they're trying to do, why they're there. And in general, I can't get anything other than I hate Donald Trump. I mean, they don't really have a plan for what to do. And some of these people, like when I go to Gainesville, they're University of Florida type people. They're professors, doctors, lawyers, that
They're
kind
elites.
of stuff. Gainesville has about the most highly what I call educated idiots probably in the country. They're literally the San Francisco of the South. And I can never get them to articulate. They don't have to agree with me, but I can't get them to articulate a coherent policy that they would like to see enacted. It's just Trump got to go.
Yeah, I got cussed at and challenged more by the educated elite liberals out in Gainesville and than I did anywhere else. You know, I had 13 counties at one time and in my district, and Gainesville, the heart of Gainesville, around that university area, were the most belligerent, rude people in my whole district. And they're the educated ones, as you said. You know, because their little world is so protected by government funds and they can do whatever they want because nobody was checking on them and they kept running. They ran amok further and further. And then Trump came in here and said, no more. Yeah. And it's something that needed to be broken up. And I'm glad he did. And Linda McMahon is going to do us all a favor by dismantling the Department of Education so that kids in Baltimore can read, so that kids in California can speak English, you know, and not have Spanish as the dominant language. I mean, you can't have a country when you're that divided, when you can't speak the same language. And, you know, if Congress would, they could bring up the legislation. We tried to make English the official language of the United States. This would be the moment to do it, because if they lose either house, it won't happen. And members of the House need to bring that up.
Yeah, Ted, something happened to your sound. It's really low, but we're just about out of time anyway. And so I know you got to go to a conference call. You're a really busy man. I appreciate that. But you mentioned, I will kind of close on this. You mentioned about the language thing, and I agree with you totally. I don't know if you saw, we're not going to play it, but a video, it happened here, I believe it was in Florida, where a truck driver was going the wrong way down the interstate where one of these toll booths, or maybe it was the turnpike, and an American, obvious kind of an old MAGA guy, probably old redneck white dude, stopped him and literally tried to question him and say, why are you going down the wrong way here? And the dude couldn't even speak English, and he was driving a semi down the wrong way. And the last thing I'll say, and if your sound is back, we'll go back to you. But they just did a survey where they did a sting operation where they did a bunch of traffic stops at this way station somewhere in the United States. I don't remember. And they checked all these people's licenses. And I'm not saying they were all illegal, but 20%, Ted, of the trucks they checked had invalid commercial driver's license.
Wow.
20%. This was just like 2 weeks ago.
Was that just in
Florida?
Florida?
Talk about a danger to Americans. It doesn't get any more dangerous than that.
Was that just here in Florida they did that?
I think it was in a different state, but
Wow.
Don't hold me to it. But it
20%.
absolutely happened.
That's scary. I mean, again, you know, Americans need to wake up, you know, and they're saying, well, this is anti-immigration, you're racist. No, this is about rule of law, about keeping your nation safe, keeping your community safe. And if you can't buy into that, by God, you're in the wrong country. You know, don't change and ruin what we have, make it better, not destroy it. And that's what these people want to do. They want to destroy this country. And, you know, I know you're that way too. I'm not going to tolerate it. And I know a lot of people aren't either. And the way you don't tolerate it is vote them out, get them out of office. No, these people don't own those positions when they're in Congress. That's our position. We allow them to be there for a 2-year period. And if we don't hold them accountable, they become like a tick on a dog. They get embedded and you can't get rid of them.
Yeah, like a tick on a dog coming right from the captain, quote, vet's mouth right there. Well, we hope you've enjoyed the show as much as we enjoyed bringing it to you. Please like what we're doing, share what we're doing, support our sponsors, become a sponsor. We want to get this message out far and wide because we enjoy doing it. But really, I know Ted agrees with me on this. We believe that the blessings that we've been given are dependent upon people like us and like you out there giving it back and teaching the next generation.
Right. You know, you